So this is a new topic that I'm starting. This is uh, equilibrium incentives in oligopoly. So far we have been talking about some of the uh, imperfect competition and what kind of other kind of contract that interplays. Okay, so beyond Cournot-Batra, what are the other ways the firms try to manipulate some of the aspect of competition and try to take advantage of that and try to maximize their own profit. Okay, so this particular topic is related to what does a firm maximize. Now, typically, you will assume that the firms do maximize profit. However, you also know that from your undergraduate days that sales maximization could also be an objective function for firms. Okay, so that's not typically a pure profit maximization objective. And also another aspect of the modern corporation is separation of ownership and management. And as a result, the shareholders, although they're interested in maximizing their own profit, but they would not be able to do it directly. So they have to appoint manager. And when the managers are appointed, managers might have different objective. So we have already seen that it is important to incentivize the manager in a proper manner so that it helps them to achieve the company's goal, that is shareholders value maximization. Okay, so these aspects were highlighted by some of these other papers. Okay, and also you know that principle is in literature. But what is important in all these other kind of papers is that they never looked at that whether the incentive can also be given to the manager who will be acting in a manner based on the incentive which might ultimately help in the imperfectly competitive market. So your standard principal agent problem or the separation of ownership and management problem, where you are actually looking at only one firm existing in the market, it does not capture the imperfect competition aspect at all. Okay, so those aspects are totally neglected in the traditional literature. So this particular paper, which actually brings it to the fore, an important dimension that you can actually manipulate the managerial incentive to take advantage. Okay, now as you can see, I have highlighted some of the portions. So monopolistic firm, the owner-manager relationship can still be there, but that's a standard principal agent problem because there is no other firm, so there is no way that manager can influence the out. Okay, manager can influence the outcome in at the cost of the rival. So this particular paper brings in this aspect that actually the manager incentive can be designed so that the manager acts in a manner which gives some kind of advantage in the competition, whether it is Cournot or Bertrand. So strategically manipulate these incentive contracts. Okay, so the owner would be interested in doing so. So distorting managers' incentives away from maximizing the owner's welfare if the reaction of the owner's competitors is beneficial. So you might like to incentivize your manager in a manner that leads to some reaction from the rival, which might be beneficial to you. So you are distorting the incentive away from the profit maximization in order to gain such advantage. Okay. So sometimes you might be interested in giving incentives for more production. So you can give positive incentive for sales. Or also there can be situations where owners can incentivize the manager to keep the sales low. So these are ways and means to control the managerial behavior which might help the firm. So apart from the standard monopoly and the principal agent and other kind of agency related issues where competition does not take place, there is a literature in the strategic trade theory, which has actually acknowledged this aspect, but slightly in a different manner. So the Brander and Spencer, they have this, some papers in the strategic trade theory literature which says that when the firms from two different countries are actually competing in a third country market, then it is possible to manipulate the cost of production of your own country's farm so that they get advantage in the international market. So one way to do that is simply subsidize the cost of production. So strategic trade theory tells you that government might like to subsidize the exports so that the overall export share goes up, and that is to the benefit of the country in terms of its overall gain. So that is the profit net of subsidy cost. Similarly, there is another branch of literature which is related to finance, which talks about that the firms can actually manipulate the behavior of the firm by suitably choosing the capital structure. Okay, so capital structure, by which we mean that equity and debt, that proportion is typically represented as the bare bone capital structure story. So how much to debt, how much the debt to raise, and how much equity to issue to fund a particular company, so that debt financing firm might have some kind of advantage in terms of focusing on only the beneficial contingencies where they will maximize profit and not bother about the situations where the bankruptcy will occur. So that way they will shift the reaction function in a manner that will be only focused on the high state of the demand, and that might be helpful in getting a favorable outcome in the product market. So Brander and Lewis is a famous paper in that line, and there are plenty of research along that line which says that debt finance firm will be aggressive in choosing the output in a Kuno competition, and when they do so, then actually overall the profit of the shareholders get maximized in expected sense. So that's a model with uncertainty parameter. Okay. So the standard observations that is coming out from all this literature, that owner will almost never tell their managers to maximize profit. So there will be some incentive focusing on certain variables to maximize, but not necessarily the profit. So that's the idea. So the game is very simple. Imagine that there are two firms which are simultaneously choosing to appoint manager, and they are thinking of whether to hire a manager or not. If they hire, then what sort of incentive scheme they will offer. And the second stage game will be the managers will be choosing the choice variable, that is either in Kuno case it is quantity, in Barton case it is price, and they will maximize the based on the incentive contract. So if managers will maximize their own payoff based on the incentive. Now, if the incentive is weighed more towards the sales maximization, and based on that the managers are paid, then managers will be inclined to choose higher sales, okay, than looking at the profit. Okay, so that's the structure of this game, and we will be solving this game in two stages. So what kind of incentive the managers can be given? Now we are considering two firms only here. Say imagine I and J are two firms. So the incentive can be to the manager that this is chosen by owner, that alpha I pi I. So based on how much profit you generate, you will be getting some alpha factor with on the profit, and 1 minus alpha factor weight on the sales. Okay, so this is a combination. So based on the profit and the sales, the managers will be paid. Okay, so I'm not restricting right now on alpha, but because alpha can also be, depending on which model we are considering, can even be greater than 1. So as a result, you can see that there can be negative weight on sales. That's possible. Okay, so this is the incentive contract given to manager, and manager will be maximizing this particular particular payoff for itself, and that particular, when it maximizes, it will choose the quantity or the price depending on which competition is happening in the product market. So they will choose to maximize this Y rather than focusing on either pi I or SI. Okay, so this combination will be maximized. So now we take some of the standard kind of example that it's a linear demand. So your P demand is A minus BQ. Q is the total quantity that is supplied in the market. Okay. And each of the firm has CI as the cost of production. Okay. And the firms are choosing in the beginning for their managers, the weights related to the incentive, alpha 1 and alpha 2 are being chosen by the owner for their manager. Okay. Now manager will be maximizing this particular thing. Okay. Now how the managerial contract is constructed here. So imagine that we thought about linear contract where there will be fixed payments. Suppose A, there is some discussion on that somewhere. Yeah. So imagine that the managerial contract is essentially AI plus BI OI. So AI is the fixed component, BI is related to the Y expression. Okay. So when there is BI is positive, so manager will be interested in maximizing Y, so in order to get greater payoff. Now this AI is the fixed component and manager has a participation payoff, participation constant, so you can adjust AI accordingly and then allow the manager to get exactly how much the participation constant demands. Okay, so that is basically the next best opportunity for the manager if they don't accept this particular contract. So whatever by rejection they get, so the owner should try to match that particular payoff by giving this particular contract so that the managers accept this particular contract of delegation of activities. So this is what the manager will maximize in order to maximize its own payoff. Okay, that is why. Now, if you do that for two firms, then Cournot reaction functions from the second stage game will be calculated to be this. Okay, so Q1 will be A minus BQ2 by 2B minus alpha 1 C1 by 2B. Okay, now if you go back to our expression, so if alpha 1 is equal to 1 and then there is no weight on sales, so then it is nothing but the profit maximization. And then if you put alpha 1 equal to 1, then this expression that you get is essentially what you get as the reaction function in a standard Cournot under the cost C1 and C2. Okay. So this is the Cournot reaction function, but where is C2? Oh, C2 would not come. This is reaction function, right? In equilibrium, it will come. Fine. Okay, so is it clear that is a reaction function? So reaction function only looks at based on how much Q2 is produced, how much would be my reaction, best response. Okay, and that is dependent on my own cost of production and of course the linear demand function and all that. Okay, and alpha 1 is essentially then the entering through this particular expression. Now, if alpha 1 is equal to 1, this will be the standard reaction function when owner themselves are actually taking part in a Cournot competition. Okay. So, and alpha 1 less than 1 means that they are giving some weightage on the sales maximization owner is giving. So now these are standard expressions that you will be able to calculate, okay, without any problem, and these are the final equilibrium output. So Q1 is this, which is function of C1 and C2, okay, and pi 1 will be this expression. So check all these expressions, they are correct, and this is an American Economic Review paper, so hopefully nothing is wrong. Okay, so now look at what are you getting. You are getting a Cournot equilibrium output which is based on C1 and C2, but what is most interesting is that if you choose alpha 1, which is equal to 1 and alpha 2 equal to 2, then you get standard A minus 2C1 plus C2 by 3B as the Cournot quantity. Okay. But given that you have not chosen alpha 1 equal to 1, you have chosen alpha 1 to be less. Suppose you choose that, which means essentially this negative term becomes less. So which means you are trying to manipulate the competition by effectively handing over to the manager a cost function which is alpha 1 C1 rather than C1 as such. Okay, and based on that alpha 1 C1, if it is lower than C1 and alpha 1 being less than 1 will be exactly lower than C1. So which would mean that you are actually increasing the quantity that is produced for yourself. Okay, and in the market competition, if your quantity goes up, then other things being equal, you have greater market share. So that's the objective through which you are trying to manipulate your quantity outcome. Okay, so then you get the profit. So now we have to go back to the second stage. So given that this is the profit, and accordingly we'll be able to also get the expression for sales. So now you can see that if we go back to our expression, which is profit expression. So this is the profit expression. So now the owner would be choosing alpha 1 to maximize this profit expression. So two owners will be choosing this alpha 1 and alpha 2 simultaneously. When they do so, then you get reaction function in terms of alpha 1 and alpha 2. So based on how much alpha 2 is chosen, you get alpha optimal best response alpha 1 is this for the owner. Similarly, for the firm 2, owner will be having an expression which is alpha 2 equal to similar expression. Now simultaneously solving them to find the equilibrium, you will get the final value of alpha 1 and alpha 2. Now simply by interchanging these subscripts, you will be able to find what would be the optimal alpha 2. So this is the expression given for optimal alpha 1. Okay, so this gives you 1 minus A plus 2C2 minus 3C1 by 5C1. So one simple thing is that if this particular term is positive, that is the last term is positive, okay, so then you can see that your alpha 1 choice will be less than 1. Okay, so that's an important observation that owner would be making the choice of weight accordingly that it is less than 1. So here is the theorem which says that in a Cournot market, A, C1 and C2 are known in stage 1 and both firms always produce positive quantities. That's the assumption because depending on this CI, CJ, some of the expressions could well be negative. So if you go back to your quantity, you need some condition on this so that this is positive for both the firms. So assuming that happens, then you get alpha I, this optimal expression, QI, this optimal expression, price prevailing in the market is this, implying that owner always give incentive for sales and may even penalize for profit if costs are sufficiently low. Now this coffee, so if CI is sufficiently low, then there is a chance that you might get this side to be greater than 1. Okay, and then that would mean that your alpha 1 will be negative. Okay, so yeah, so that would mean that you are actually putting negative weight on the profit and putting too much weight on the sales. Clear? Okay, if C1 is low enough, there is a chance that A plus 2CJ, imagine CI is 0. Oh no, if it is 0, then it is not defined. So if CI is going down to 0, so in the process of going down, you can see that this side will go up, and when this side is going up, alpha I can well be negative, and if alpha is negative, that means that owner is putting negative weight on profit and putting too much weight on sales. Okay, and then obviously you can also have some expressions which are related to that. If C1 and C2 are same, then you will be able to get some nice looking algebra to convince you that how alpha 1 and Q1 are chosen. Now, what is happening here? Essentially, if you do not have any alpha factor kind of incentive scheme, and if you think that your owner is maximizing their own profit by choosing quantity, imagine that reaction functions are the two reaction functions which are intersecting at point A. Okay. Now, as soon as you change the incentive scheme of the manager, and managers are given the incentive that you maximize some combination of profit and sales, given that there is positive weightage on sell, then that will shift the reaction function towards right. Okay. So for farm one's reaction function, this will go towards right. For the up or right, whatever way you want to interpret. Similarly, for the farm 2, this is also shifting to the right, and the new equilibrium that is established is at C. Okay. So you can easily imagine that the new equilibrium is happening at a point where both the farms are producing more. Okay. Now, what are the implications of this particular outcome? Implication is that because of this incentive equilibrium which is happening through the delegation of task of choosing quantity to a manager, is that it is increasing the quantity production of each farm, okay, in equilibrium. Now, what does that mean? That means that in equilibrium, both the farms are choosing higher quantities, which would immediately tell you that you will be earning overall lower profit, okay? So why? Because given the demand function, if the quantity production goes up, and given that you have the same cost of production, now if you simply note that the difference, so how much you are producing and what is the price prevailing in the market, price prevailing at the point C will be much lower because there is higher quantities of output that is offloaded in the market under Cournot. So price will be lower, and in that case, higher quantity and your overall profit for both the farms will go down. Okay. But that's the outcome that is happening because of the incentive that is given. However, if one guy does not choose any incentive scheme, so imagine that alpha 2 is choosing alpha 2 equal to 1. That means that farm 2 is only maximizing profit. Now, if farm 2 is maximizing profit, then its reaction function will remain this lower line. Okay. Now, this line, which is basically passing through AB, will be the reaction function of farm 2. Now, farm A is choosing to delegate. If it chooses to delegate, it can shift the reaction function from this lower line to CB line. Okay. Now, as soon as it does so, it can go to a point of B equilibrium where it is getting more profit because the other guy is not shifting the reaction function and this guy is producing higher profit. And what would be this B point? Can you tell me what intuitively what could be this B point? Implication. Farm 1 will be choosing the incentive scheme so that it can reach B point as equilibrium. Now, this B point is nothing but the Stackelberg outcome. So, farm 1 will assume the position of a leader by choosing alpha suitably. Okay, you prove that. When alpha 2 equal to 1, you can find out all the equilibrium values and then check that that exactly coincides with your Stackelberg outcome. Okay. However, if farm 2 also reacts to that kind of choices of alpha 1, then farm 2 will also have a reaction function by the owner with respect to the alpha 2. So it will choose alpha 2 based on alpha 1, and that will finally lead to the shift in reaction function, which will pass through C. So as a result, new equilibrium outcome will be at C. Okay. So this is the situation. So this will be the final outcome. And in the process, what is happening, that there will be more production. And what is this corollary? Let us look at the corollary. Under the assumption of theorem 1, incentive equilibrium in the quantity game generates greater output, lower rents, rents means your profit they are mentioning, lower prices, and more efficient allocation of production than the usual Cournot equilibria. Now, more efficient allocation of production means that it is actually increasing the overall output. Okay, in standard Cournot, there will be some much lower output, which means much higher price in the market. So that's a kind of imperfection because of the two firms being in the market and Cournot competition. That some amount of inefficiency due to that imperfect competition will be overcome by this kind of delegation equilibrium. Okay, but obviously you remember that these are done by firms' own interest. So there is no social planner we are talking about here. So nobody can force them to do anything. But if they come to a race-like delegation equilibrium they try to enforce, then they end up creating a situation which is a more efficient allocation of productions. That means both productions are going up. Okay. So what is happening? This is a kind of prisoner's dilemma situation. So if one guy does try to delegate, then it shifts the reaction function towards right. Now, given that possibility is there, the other guy will also try to shift the reaction function. And in the process of choosing that alpha 1 and alpha 2, both of them are collectively harming themselves. But given the non-cooperative setup, they are involved in a competition which is a prisoner's dilemma, that they are ending up with a bad equilibrium. Okay, for themselves, not for the society. Society is better off in a sense that the consumers are better off, and you are having a better allocation of output. Okay, more output is being produced, so more consumer surplus will be generated. That will certainly compensate the producer's loss. Okay, so that's socially more desirable outcome, but that is happening by this non-cooperative equilibrium, which is that both the firms are choosing to shift their reaction function and ending up at a bad Nash equilibrium for themselves. Okay. Then this particular model is also thought of that this can capture situation of uncertainty, where you can consider that demand parameter A that we have assumed is represented by some A bar. Okay, and that A bar is mean of the distribution that is there for A. Okay, and then they have told you that what would be those equilibrium outcome of alpha 1 and Q1 when you have mean demand intercept, that is A bar. Okay, easiest way to think about that, imagine that small a1 and small a2 are two different intercept, and suppose there are probability associated P and 1 minus P, then this A bar represents that average expected value of that two A1 and A2, okay, based on the probability distribution. And that will give you this expression for this particular model, okay. So the alpha 1 will be this much, which is looking at the mean. This is the optimal alpha 1, and looking at the Q1, that is the optimal quantity, okay. Similarly for farm 2, you can get the similar things. So this is also further extended with random cost, but I will not encourage you to do that, okay, because that will become slightly more complicated. So avoid this part, okay. But this second part, equilibrium with many firms, are important to understand that actually when you have n approaches infinity, so that means there are plenty of firms. Now you know these limit results, right? In the Cournot competition, you have infinite number of firms which are involved in Cournot competition. Then if you look at the quantity expressions, you will be able to see that the quantities are approaching to the competitive quantities in that sense. So in a sense, the overall outcome in the market will be converging to the competitive outcome if you have large number of firms who are involved in competition with quantities under Cournot conjecture. So given that Cournot equilibrium converges to perfectly competitive equilibrium with large number of firms, as the number of firms increases, they gradually converge to the competitive outcome. So similarly, it might be of interest to see that what happens to the delegation equilibrium. Now in the delegation equilibrium, you will be able to see that alpha I tends to 1 as the number of firms increases, okay? And so this uncertainty, the part is not of that much important, but you can simply look at the deterministic model with A being a deterministic terms, cost is also not random. So in that case also, if you look at the alpha value and quantity values, you'll be able to ascertain that with large number of firms, the weight on profit will go up to 1. Okay, so that means finally everybody will be profit maximizer, but finally it will approximate the world of competitive outcome. Okay, so there is a proof which you should go through. This is just simple algebra. So this is consistent with our understanding of perfectly competitive market, that even the delegation equilibrium converge to that. Now what happens under price competition? Now you can forget about this aspect of randomness, but you will be able to work with a simple linear demand without the random component. Okay, so standard A minus BPI plus APJ. Okay, and then you will be able to find out the Bertrand equilibrium for that, and then run the same model of two-stage game where alpha i's are chosen, alpha I, alpha j, and then finally you try to determine in the two-stage game what would be their the equilibrium values. So in a standard differentiated product, with linear demand, your alpha I will be greater than 1. Okay, so that would be the equilibrium outcome. So even without going through this particular algebra, you should be able to derive in a deterministic model the same outcome. Okay, so that I would expect you to do it. So alpha I greater than 1, what does that mean? That means that under Bertrand competition, the weight on profit is given more, and 1 minus alpha is the weight on sales. Now if alpha is greater than 1, that means that this weight on sales are actually negative. So that means the managers will be penalized for making extra sales in their incentive scheme. So because of these aspects, so that they will be able to reach a better outcome. So that in terms of the reaction function, you will be able to see that this delegation equilibrium would lead to a situation of shifting the reaction function outwards, okay, because this is in a price space, and the alpha I that is optimally chosen is giving lower weightage on lower sales. Now lower sales can be enforced by the manager by choosing higher price. Okay, so and managers are choosing price under this Bertrand competition. So finally new equilibrium will be here. Okay, so it will be at a higher price. Now this particular aspect is being derived that even if the other guy is not choosing any alpha j, so if alpha j is equal to 1, not different, even then you have the incentive of choosing alpha I greater than 1, because that will restrain your manager in terms of lowering sales. That means increasing the price, and that increasing price will have effect on the rivals behavior, that will also increase the price. Okay, so because of this strategic complementarity, under this delegation equilibrium, you will see that the equilibrium outcome is shifting from here to the new point here. Okay, so the higher one. Okay, so now the difference between Cournot and Bertrand competition. In the Cournot competition, alpha I is typically less than 1. The owner motivates managers to behave aggressively, and to produce beyond the profit maximization level, whereas in the price competition case, alpha is greater than 1 and managers behave non-aggressively, because in standard Bertrand, it is already a very cutthroat competition. So the incentives are provided in order to reduce that competition in the market. So in the quantity competition, each case, each owner acting as a stakeholder leader with respect to the opposing manager recognizes the negative slope of its rival's manager's reaction function and therefore wants his manager to expand output, okay, and thereby to acquire the stakeholder leadership position. In the price competition stage, each owner knows that any credible increase in its own price will be followed by an increase in its rival's price, okay, as a reaction to that, therefore motivating its manager to be less aggressive and charge a price above the profit maximizing price under Bertrand competition. Okay, so that's how this particular competitions can be manipulated. Okay, so that gives you the story of incentive equilibrium. Okay, so then what is happening finally, that managerial incentives are manipulated to take advantage, but given the structure of the model, they finally, both the firm owners are actually ending up with a prisoner's dilemma kind of situations. That is a bad Nash equilibrium for both the firms. But unilaterally, they cannot think of any better outcome. Even if the other guy does not do the delegation, you have unilateral advantage of doing the deviation and appointing a manager and giving the manager an incentive contract. Okay, so because of this aspect, you finally end up getting an incentive equilibrium where managers are given to maximize not only profit but profit and sales. Okay, in a fashion based on, if it is Cournot, then alpha is typically less than 1. If it is Bertrand, you get alpha greater than 1. Okay, so that's how this model is constructed.